Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tammy Patzer.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Anne Margolis. She's been with us before, but today we're actually going to be talking about her new book, Trauma Release Formula. But first, let me tell you a little bit about her. Anne Margolis is a licensed certified nurse midwife, OB/GYN nurse practitioner, certified yoga instructor, and certified clarity breathwork practitioner. She's a third generation guide to mamas birthing babies in her family. She's helped thousands of families in her 20 plus year midwifery practice and has personally ushered the births of more than 1,000 healthy babies into the world. And she's also guided countless human beings to heal their emotional pain, inner stress, and trauma, and to reclaim their joyfulness, calm, and overall sense of well-being. She has just written an international best-selling book, and I'm going to read the title for you because it's quite long, but it describes exactly what Anne does. Trauma Release Formula, the revolutionary step-by-step program for eliminating the effects of childhood abuse, trauma, emotional pain, and crippling inner stress to living in joy without drugs or therapy. So, Anne, tell me more about your latest international best-selling book and a little bit more about your story.
Well, I am just so excited about this book because I am wanting to share what I do with the people locally in my practice with the world. I feel like I found gold, and I want everyone else to experience the gold that I experienced in my own healing.
So go ahead and tell me a little bit more about the trauma, because everybody has some type of trauma in their life, but I think your story probably started at a very, very young age.
Right. And as you know, I did not realize that I entered adulthood very wounded from years of childhood abuse from an emotionally ill mother. And so I just didn't realize that, and I just suppressed and buried and escaped and numbed and disassociated, kind of how we all do. I mean, I was good at that because that's what I did as a child. I had a glorious childhood, actually. I had a loving family, and it was when my mom lost her mom at a very young age to quickly and aggressively to cancer. I was 9, and she snapped into what what I now know to be a very serious mental illness called borderline personality disorder. But as a 9-year-old, I was seeing a mother with 3 different personalities. Like, I never knew when I was going to see a raging witch that was conniving and abusive, and I had to escape from. Or sometimes she became very dark and angry and scary. Or sometimes I would just see this like hopeless, helpless victim that she was so pathetic. I had to like save her. And sometimes I would get glimpses of my loving mom. And the rest of my family didn't know how, they had no tools to deal with this horror. And little by little, they left. And my dad and my extended family were my haven. And little by little, they just moved away. And so love, to me, growing up from the age of 9 and, through even early, adulthood, until I met my husband. But even, she was, that they were still behaving in this way meant abuse and a lot of pain and neglect and abandonment, and these were during my really, my formative years, but I just, buried in busyness and just, got very involved with my friends and my work. And I was work outside the home and playing the guitar and dancing and my boyfriend, so I just denied. Now, so what happened was, as an adult, it starts coming out, right? Because I had my own series of various stresses and traumas as an adult. And I think my main wake-up call was when my daughter was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And at this point, I had 4 children. I was midwifing. I was working 80 hours a week as a midwife, midwifing everybody else, and but myself. And I was very holistic even at that time. I was, women and their families, share their most intimate, deepest sufferings with me. And there's a lot of emotional pain and inner stress and trauma that they were sharing with me. And I have always been passionate about helping people heal and live in their calm and live in their joy. But I wasn't able to do that for myself. Right. And so I said, my wake up call was when my daughter was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and the doctor sat down with us and said, and this was, 8 years of hell. But when he first, gave us the diagnosis, I mean, she was so sick, and he said, the only way to save her life is a bone marrow transplant. We have to give her very high dose chemo. It's gonna, this percent don't make it, this percent have this complication and this complication, life-threatening infection, and I was just hearing this, and I really wanted to crawl up in a ball and it was too much. The mountain was too big, too much to deal with. And just so you know, he was an amazing doctor, and my daughter survived miraculously, and he came to her wedding, and she's now expecting her 3rd baby when she was told she would be menopausal. So miracles happen, and I witness miracles all the time when I am as a midwife. But when in it, it didn't feel like any miracle to me. It was 8 years. And it wasn't like me to crawl up in a ball. I didn't want to stay there in this victim kind of state. So that was like my wake up call. I gotta do what I can. Well, how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? How can I be the best I can for myself, for my daughter, for my other children, and the rest of my family and my clients and my friends, right? So that kind of started me on this healing journey, and I tried everything. And it was literally torture to live in my body. I tried, I was a yoga teacher and a meditation, I did meditation. It didn't touch it. Tried all sorts of talk therapy, made it worse. Acupuncture, homeopathy, hypnotherapy, the journey work, all sorts of supplements. And I upped my diet and also natural remedies, and nothing was working. And at one point I remember feeling so desperate, I went to different psychiatrists, and they just wanted to drug me. And I said, I don't care what you do, just I'll take anything at this point. And the drugs just made it worse, didn't help. And really at my wit's end, I think it was the last resort, I went to this integrative psychiatrist, and I traveled far to get to her. She was so highly recommended, and she nailed it. She says, you have chronic post-traumatic stress, PTSD. You have a normal trauma reaction to chronic trauma that you've been exposed to. But she was really focused on my childhood trauma, because the a lot of adult wounds and triggers and issues are from the earliest of wounds and traumas. And she just was focused on all that. And she says the cutting edge trauma research indicates that to heal from trauma, which is a normal body reaction to horrific experiences, and cutting edge research dictates that you don't, all that trauma is kind of stored as trapped energy in the body. It's everything I've ever experienced is in my subconscious, even if I have no access to it, which is dictating my reactions, my behavior, the way I feel, and it's causing physical and emotional dis-ease, right? So the way to heal is not through the mind, it's through the body. And so she started, I was so excited that I got a diagnosis, that I wasn't going nuts, and that there's a way that we can, she says, what we need to do is reset your nervous system and release the trauma from your body, release this energy. And why this fascinated me is she was, she told there's somatic experience is one of the cutting edge trauma therapies. And I read Dr. Peter Levine's book. I was so excited about it. He's the father of somatic experience. And he a lot of the trauma research, we're studying is coming from studying animals, aside from neurology and embryology and psychology. But we're looking at animals, and we have the same trauma response. So, for example, if an animal sees a predator in the wild, so let's say a deer sees a tiger in the wild, the deer's fight or flight normal stress response will kick in. It's a life-saving, response. The deer will either run for its life, fight the tiger, which the deer will lose, so the deer will not fight the tiger. But the fight or flight is the fight or flight. Or if the deer is not if the tiger is too close, the predator is too close, and there's no hope for escape, the deer will actually enter a different trauma response, which is totally to play dead. They become completely still and they look dead, and their body shuts down. They disassociate. There's all sorts of adaptive reasons why and benefits to this. But if a predator sees an animal in this state, they lose interest because they know they have this dead animal, so they're going to go catch another one, and that's the deer's last chance of escaping. So humans have a very similar response. And what happens is if that trauma cycle is not allowed to express itself, the trauma gets trapped in the body. The energy of the trauma, like they've studied animals. If an animal cannot, what I was mentioning before. So if the deer makes it to safety, like all animals, they shake it off. They shake off the energy, and they reset their nervous system, and they resume being in this parasympathetic calm state, which is the optimal health of being in the world when there's not a predator, when there's not a danger. But if as a child, right, or there's all sorts of traumas that can happen, anything that's intense, horrific, upsetting, it could be, there's all sorts of verbal, physical, sexual abuse, bullying, relationship issues. It could even just be the chronic criticism of a parent, right? Or there's an illness, a sudden death. It's not just, we learned about trauma from learning post-traumatic stress from war veterans coming home with what they used to call shell shock, but they absolutely could not function in life without being, they weren't given care that helps them resolve this trauma. Right. So anyway, so that's what she told me I had. And I could absolutely heal. Just, I have to put myself into a certain state where I could reset my nervous system and release the trapped energy in my body. And so around that same time, I went to a yoga retreat with a dear friend of mine who, and in Costa Rica. And on that retreat, everybody was raving about this breath work that they had done with this practitioner who was doing breath work, and they felt like they released tons of energy of pain and trauma from their body. And like my antennas went up. I wanted to try that right away, and that was the first appointment that years ago that began the journey that saved my life. I literally, when I made an appointment with this woman, and I went through this experience of breathing in this way. It's a certain specific type of breath. It's using breath as, it's using breath as medicine, as a healing modality. And yogis have known this for thousands of years. Have been using the power of breath for healing. and cultivating different states in the body. So this is a form of breath that helps people reset the nervous system, increase their vitality, and release trapped energy of pain and trauma from their body without having to think or talk about it and analyze it. It just happens. So the experience when I was with her doing it was so powerful. I had asked her afterwards what drug she just gave me, because I didn't, like how could breathing in this way, but I was like, she was kind of my midwife, and the holding space and coaching me through some through the whole experience, because it could be intense, especially if we're not used to feeling, and the healing is in the feeling. But we have to embrace all the sensations that come up, and there's certain. It's important to have somebody guide you through at least your first several sessions, because it's powerful. And she said, it's not the drug, it's no drug, it's the power of the breath. So I knew right there that it's almost like I let go of 300 pounds of bricks that I'd been carrying for all those years. I just let them go. They just left my body, and I didn't even have to know what the brick was, what it was about. It just left, and I was like, I need more of this. Right. So then I continued to work with her over Skype. And I even went down to Costa Rica periodically. My husband was so impressed. He came down. He wanted to do it too. And because he saw, like, I got myself back. I got my joy back. I was just, the transformation that he witnessed was, and the rest of my family witnessed, that people were mind blown. And so, then I immersed myself in an intensive, and in that intensive where I would say, I was breathing regularly for a short period of time. Trillions of tons of trauma energy left my body, and I just felt so relieved and so grateful, and that I was able to feel normal and awesome in my body. And I witnessed this among all the other people in that came, to the workshop, and I wanted to get training in it, get certified in it, so that I could do and share this with my practice. So that's what I've been doing locally, with people in my practice, and I do private sessions and I do group sessions, and so it's not just the women that give birth, or come to me for gynecology. It's their partners and their families and their friends, and it just, and then a lot of holistic psychiatrists and therapists are sending me people. So I wrote the book because I just came back from 6 weeks of doing this in Costa Rica, more assisting in the training. But it's such powerful work that I just wanted to share this with the world, because if you have lungs and you're human, you have baggage, and you can do this kind of work and you can heal from it. It's our birthright to be in our joy and our calm. Why should we walk around, in suffering? So we can make the choice to heal and live in our joy and our calm, and it's and then we don't have the physical and emotional disease that are plaguing so many of the people that I hear from.
So can this work? I know you had some specific trauma. Do you have any studies or any stories about different types of people and maybe what types of problems they had? Oh
my gosh, yes. So I had a man in my practice who there's so many stories. I had a man in my practice who came to me. He was 40, in his early 40s, and he was just unhappy in his marriage, and he had a few babies with me. Unhappy in his marriage. He felt very overprotective. He was having trouble with his intimate relationship with his wife, and he just was feeling suffering. He was feeling unhappy and not at ease, and he was attributing it to an abuse that he had as a child. He was sexually abused by a nanny his parents left him with. He never told his wife. He never told his parents because the nanny had threatened him that if he told, he was scared what she would do. And he carried this with him, and it was, he just felt it was impacting him. And on the intake, because I do a very thorough intake, it came out that he had 10 years. He had major joint pain in his knees and his shoulders and his wrists. It was so painful. And he had gone to so many doctors and even alternative providers, and no one could help him for 10 years. But he didn't think it had anything to do with this issue that he was carrying with his nanny, that he only told me. He had not told anybody else. So in his breathwork sessions, he released this trauma that he was carrying from being sexually abused as a little boy for years. And it just released. He was so happy. He was like shaking it out. And he was able to even forgive his parents because he had this resentment toward his parents that they would leave him with a nanny like that. But in the state of the breath work, he was able to forgive them because they didn't know about it. And he didn't tell them about it. And if he did tell them, if he had the courage to tell them, they would have absolutely fired the nanny. They were, and he was able to let go this energy of anger towards the nanny because, he was connecting to his higher self. There's a spiritual or transcendent component to this work. And he was able to connect to this, release this energy thinking that the nanny was probably abused or wounded herself or so, ill. And it wasn't about condoning what she did. It was just setting him free. And in the series of breath work sessions, he said his joint pain went away. He had no joint pain. And that pain was so severe he was unable to work or do any sort of workout, and it was interfering with his ability to help with his children. And so he got his life back. He got his life back. He improved his marriage. And so that was a story that I love because he came to me for one thing, but his physical problem went away as well. And it improved his, relationships, because how do we improve our relationships? We can't expect someone else to fix themselves. We have to fix ourselves. When we're in our joy and we're in our healing and we're in our calm, then we are operating at a higher frequency. We take ourselves higher. We bring up everybody around us. But when we're down, we bring on down everybody. We have nothing to give. Yeah, so that's just him. I mean, I have a lot of stories like that.
So the clarity breath work not only helps with relieving all that trapped energy, but it's like your body, because I know most people, some people complain, I have a headache, or they talk about joint pains, or they talk about fibromyalgia a lot. And what you're saying is talk therapy doesn't work, and you tried all that.
Not for trapped trauma energy and energy of suppressed emotional pain. It may help in certain situations, but
in this
not
type of situation, and most of us probably, if we were to stop and think about, well, what happened to us along the way. Like I remember when I had, childbirth, I remember that was a traumatic experience and different things along the way. So your book is Trauma Release Formula. What is the basic formula that someone would use to recognize?
And it's not that, I do want to pay homage to, I don't know if you've heard of Dr. John Sarno.
No, but I'm sure you know. Yeah.
Well, he wrote the book Mind Body Prescription, and he's very famous. He was an orthopedic. I think he was an orthopedic surgeon in the Rusk Institute, which is in New York, and he's treated many people from all over the world. Had flocked to him for chronic back pain, chronic shoulder pain, chronic knee pain, all kinds of pain, right? And he started, and he's not holistic, and he says he's not holistic, and he was seeing that there was no correlation between the chronic pain that people were having in their back there was no correlation between the pain and the studies, because many normal people who are not having pain are walking around with spinal stenosis and herniated discs and all sorts of things that are found on the MRI that people attribute to causing their pain, right? And they're having surgery and then the pain goes somewhere else, right? So he would find that a lot of the people that came to him who had debilitating pain and surgeries that didn't help, because they came to him as a last resort because they thought he's all about the mind, body, but a lot of them had nothing wrong on their MRI or their CAT scan, but they had debilitating pain. And what he found was that it was from suppressed, uncomfortable anger and grief and emotions that we were uncomfortable feeling. That was just coming out in a physical way. So maybe some people might get depression. Maybe some people might get panic attacks. Maybe some people might get migraines or cancer or high blood pressure. And when he just told them, and this is what I'm going to tell you about my book, when he told them there is nothing physically wrong with you, and just knowing that, and that this is from, these symptoms are real, but this is from suppressed emotional anger and uncomfortable feelings that we're not comfortable feeling, because we live in a culture that it's just, we need to feel good. Anytime we don't feel good, we deny, we numb, we escape, right? And so just knowing that, a lot of them healed. But then he also worked with he had ways of helping people release when they, release that uncomfortable emotions that they did. Okay, how do I get rid of that, right? But he became very famous in it. So step one of the formula is just to know that it's, number one, it's not your fault, and that there's this the key to a lot of problems, physical, emotional, life issues, problems in career, relationships, your own personal life, can have to do with trapped trauma that's stored in your body. And like when the psychiatrist first told me that I'm not crazy, I don't have depression, I don't have anxiety, although chronic trauma, trapped trauma can cause those symptoms. If you just allow your nervous system to reset and release, you can absolutely heal. So I think, that this is like one key that unlocks a lot of these problems that seem like now it's so fragmented. I got to go to the gastroenterologist. I got to go to the psychiatrist, got to go to the gynecologist and the orthopedic, and we have so many specialists when we're not really getting to the root cause, and so that's huge, I think, because I think that's revolutionary. I think most people don't know that.
So you first have to figure out that it's not really you, in terms of you have this pent up, unreleased traumatic energy that has been in your body for a lifetime. And then the cool part is it can be released through the breathing, the clarity breath work, or the breath work that you help people do.
Yeah, and it's also about there's so much that I go into, but it's about embracing all of our bodies don't lie. Our bodies are very wise, and it's sometimes our brain that gets in the way. Our left brain thinking gets in the way. But what clarity breath work does is it gets us into a semi-conscious state, and so that the left brain gets out of the way, and that we just allow our bodies to feel. Our bodies need to process those emotions and feel, and then they release. We did it as children, right? We did it as babies and toddlers. If you have children, you relate that when your little boy or little girl was feeling joy, they embodied joy. They were singing and skipping and dancing, and like they it was like a ball of light that just entered the room, right? But if they were sad or they were angry, they had the same expression. They embodied that grief. They had a full blown, or anger. They had a full blown temper tantrum, sobbing, screaming, kicking, pounding, writhing around, and then they got up and played. Like they processed it, they felt it, they had no shame, they were innocent, they were authentically being themselves. Yeah. So part of it is to encouraging, people to embrace all of our emotions, all of our sensations, they're all holy. Just as there's light and dark, there's rain and sun, there's joy and pain. And without the story, just, feeling the sensations and embodying them and moving through them is just, one way of preventing the uncomfortable emotions from being suppressed, because it's when we suppress things that are uncomfortable, that is a problem. That's what's causing a lot of the this trapped energy that just needs to, and a lot of people know they do this. They go, they're feeling uncomfortable, they go out for a run. They're not.
I hold my breath when I'm a shallow breather, and when I actually breathe, it makes a huge difference.
Huge difference. Most people are a shallow breather in today's stressed out society. We're using about 20 to 30% of our lung capacity, and breath work, this sort of breath work, is accessing 100% of our lung capacity. And we're bathing our cells during the time that we're breathing in this way in 100% of oxygen, which is the main source of energy and fuel for our body. There's reasons it works on a physical level, but when we encounter something that's upsetting, or we're just chronically stressed out, we tend to breathe more shallow and more rapid, and we tend to suppress and bury emotions, and emotions have energy, and it's also, everything is stored in our subconscious. I mean, it's just, I'm amazed by the results that I see, and people are in awe by the power of this kind of breath work, and it's simple. It doesn't have, why does it have to be so complicated? And it doesn't involve years and years and years of psychoanalysis and therapy that a lot of people tell me they're not getting anywhere.
Wow. And I think that's really important, is that, like you said, if you said the first time you did it, it felt like you released hundreds of pounds of bricks, and then when you did it some more, it released some more. So if somebody wants to get more information or work with you, what is the best way to get in contact?
So they can go on my website, Home Sweet Home Birth, BIRTH, and the breath work used to be it's a form of what is called rebirthing. So that's where the birth, my ability to hold space for women who are birthing and families who are birthing is very similar to my ability to hold space for someone who is rebirthing themselves, right? It's very similar. I don't know if you remember birth, but yeah, I just to answer your question, that on my website, homesweethomebirth.com, on the top heading, it says Clarity Breathwork. And I do local private sessions. I do private sessions in person, private sessions on Skype, or and also retreats and workshops. And
of course, everyone can start with the book, Trauma Release Formula, and you can get that book on Amazon or through your website. So wow. I just know that because I was fortunate enough to read the book, and just the act of reading the book, it does open a lot of, let's just say, emotional things, because you remember things. And then, of course, you do have some things that you can do at the end of the book where you talk about different movement and different things. Can you just give us a few ways that you can start to work on yourself to help to release some of this trauma that you may have?
Well, that's what I was talking about, the dancing, right? Mm-hmm. And just knowing that this is what's that's what's possible, and just knowing that it can be released and reset. But the breath is the main way to do it, and dancing can be a daily practice. I've been in trauma workshops, in multiple trainings and workshops where there could be a room of 50 people, a room of 100, 500, 2,500 people dancing grief. Like indigenous cultures around the world do this. They don't just dance a celebration. They dance in community, anger and grief So I've been in rooms where where they're playing a song that elicits, that kind of music of grief, so that you feel it and move it, and you're kind of channeling that inner toddler, or whenever, how we used to do it before we were shut down and told to stuff it. Right. So you could, or if you're not feeling grief, it could be anger. Right. And I have playlists, literally, like when I lead workshops or when I'm in workshops, they have also playlists of songs that elicit that feeling of anger. And you just, and if you're feeling anger, there's people, vocalizing and where nobody's hurting anybody else, but they're embodying, they're moving it, and they're just channeling that inner temper tantrum. And we always end with sort of an upbeat turn on song, that's more, I don't want to get stuck in the muck. The whole point is that these emotions are holy and they're normal and they're appropriate, but we end up having problems when we get stuck in them, right? We need to just be able to move through the waves of the emotions and embracing them. And then I have a whole part in my book about how do you live in joy? Yeah, it's not like just going to happen by itself, right? You have to cultivate joy. So there's certain practices that you can do on a daily basis. What do you love? What do you, people don't even, I have so many people that tell me they don't even know what they love. They're just so depressed or stressed out. They don't even know. They don't even have time to do anything, but even in tiny parts of the day, how can you bring pleasure? How can you bring doing what you love into your life? And, and Dr. Bernie Siegel, a surgical oncologist who I got very into his books when my daughter was so ill. And he's not the only one. I mean, there's so much research out there now about people who live long and survive terminal illness are people that are doing what they love and they stop doing what they hate. And so that could be in your personal life, in your work life, in your relationships. And you can transform a relationship being in your joy and, bringing pleasure into your life. So being in an attitude of gratitude, we talked about that once before on an interview, how can we cultivate gratitude instead of focusing on all the things we're complaining about? We have a lot to be grateful for, so when we're in a mindset of gratitude, it's like there's no room for the mindset of all the things that are wrong.
Right.
So there's a lot of, simple daily practices that people can do to really cultivate and live in a state of calm and joy. But first we have to release the trapped trauma and emotional pain and inner stress. And, once I or the families that I've helped, release the bulk of that trauma, they don't have to keep coming back and doing it. It's something that you learn how to do. And I talk about how to breathe in this way, but some people just need like a reboost, like once a month or once every few months. Life is stressful, things happen, right? And it's a tool to just release it, and you don't have to analyze it and talk about it. I mean, we need to talk, but I'm just saying.
Well, I think that's really important because, like you said, we live in a world of trauma. I mean, there's all kinds of stress and different pressures every day. And
right.
If we can learn how to release it and to find our joy. And like you said, so many people don't even allow themselves to think about joy.
They're just so much in their suffering. Yeah. So much in their pain and victimhood, so it's how do we go from victim to victor, from, to become a heroine of our life, and take responsibility for our life. And it impacts everybody, all, ripple effect on everyone who we touch. Right. So, yeah, in the beginning, it helps, especially if someone has, a lot of serious trauma, it helps to have a guide to be there with you when you're really beginning this. But once you learn it, you do it on your own. It's a self-help tool that you could, it's free. Breath is everywhere. It's infinite, right? Can
and
always
being able to shake it out too. It's funny because after you said that, there was something that happened. I think it was a scary movie or something. And my son and I were watching this movie, and both of us, our reaction was like, ah, and then both of us went like this. And I thought, oh, we naturally shook it out because, and that kind of reminded me of you and the trauma release formula, because I was witnessing our natural reaction to that scary movie was to have that reaction and then to do like this almost, I mean, it was just like that immediate reaction to that.
You know, women after they have a baby, even though it's not, you know, it can be a beautiful birth, a lot women will shake. It's an intense experience for the body.
I did. I remember shaking.
Yeah, and a lot of in the medical world, a lot of people try to stop it. But we no, just don't stop it. Let her shake. She's not cold. She needs to shake out that energy. She just gave birth.
Yeah, the nurse tried to make me stop, and it was like it was not like I was doing it on purpose. It was an involuntary.
It's an involuntary instinctual primal response,
like like that. Because think about it. You just gave birth, and it was a very intense, traumatic. Well, that one was, but luckily my other two births weren't like the first one, which was very traumatic because it was just different, and everything, and scary, and all the things that make going to the hospital not one of the fun things. But that's the topic of a whole other book.
That's a whole other book. But I'm so glad that I'm a midwife, because birth and rebirthing, or healing from suffering and pain and trauma is so there's a lot of similarities. Both are huge, like, transformations that involve all degrees of intensity and pain and challenge and vulnerability and facing fear head on and surrendering to a process that's far greater than all of us, as well as enormous relief and joy and empowerment and ecstasy and miracles. And so it's very interesting when a woman is close to birthing, like if she's having a natural birth, and the sensations are, this is universal pretty much. When a woman is close to birthing and the sensations are the most intense, it's called the transition part of labor, or as the baby is, crowning, she will resist. And she might say, I can't. I'm out of here. I'm going to explode. I'm going to die. Just cut me. And this is like someone who, wants a natural birth. She's done it before. She's very well prepared. And it's very similar to the rebirthing. So in a birth situation, when I just tell this woman, it's a healthy birth, right? She's doing well. I just tell her, you're not going to die. You're just give into it. Just allow it to happen. I got you, right? Or sometimes I need to say, okay, explode, lose control, have a panic attack. But I want you to just give in and feel the feelings and just ride the wave. They birth, and then they feel awesome. Right, so it's very similar to helping people in a breathwork session, because sometimes when they're breathing, there's all sorts of sensations that come up, and the sensations of whatever emotions need to come up. And if people aren't used to feeling, and that they can get scared by their feeling, and they might say the same thing to me: "I'm going to explode." Or I don't want to have an anxiety or a panic attack, or I don't want to go there, right? So there's resistance, and it's just the ego mind kind of getting in our way. And I tell them the same thing. It's okay. Just allow yourself to feel it. You're safe. I've got you. And have a panic attack. This might be your last panic attack. Really, this might be your last anxiety attack. And when they, surrender and they just allow themselves to feel, then they rebirth, they release, and they shake it off. And then the feeling afterwards is very similar to how they feel after they've given birth. Like, wow, I did that. I can do anything. That wasn't so bad. It's actually the fear of feeling is worse than the feeling. That's usually, yeah.
because I know the feeling. That's why when you hold back your tears, and it actually, you can feel it, and
That's gross.
And your face just starts to like swell up and get hot. And then if you allow them, it's like a wash.
Love the tears.
Yes.
Yeah, I tell that's the attitude to cultivate, to get the best results of doing this kind of work is embrace all your sensations. It is safe to breathe. There is no risk to breathing in this way, and there is no risk to feeling your emotion. There's just no risk. It's just sensations. We get out of the story. The story is for the therapist. You can talk about the story on and on and on with the therapist, but yeah, in this situation, it's just it's allowing and embracing and loving your body's sensations. And when you do that, it's like, bring it on, like let it be fun, let it be gentle, let it be an adventure. And then the healing that takes place is just awesome. I'm blown away by it. Well, so that's why I was so excited I had to write a book.
Well, you actually make releasing trauma sound really exciting.
Why does it have to be pain? Why does it have to be torturous?
And it's like,
that'd be awesome.
It's like, I want to do that, because who wouldn't want to release all that trauma and crap and then be joyful? I mean, if you think about what you're going to get to go through that release process, where you might feel vulnerable, where you might feel like I'm going to explode, or I'm afraid of that. But just like having a baby, look what you get on the other side. You have this child and this baby, and you have that love and just think, if you could turn that around and love yourself and have that wonderful, joyful experience, it's like, wow, I want that. I mean, who want that? That's really
I'm telling you, people, I've had people just like I said, birth in ecstasy and birth in pleasure. I've had people, when they're doing the breath work, be in an ecstatic state and be in this pleasurable state. I was just in Costa Rica, I told you, for 6 weeks, and we had these, trainings and people coming from all over the world to do these trauma release workshops with the breath work. And we were in a sharing circle, and, people were sharing all their traumas and what they've gone through. And this one man was, when it was time for him to share, he's like, I'm just here with my wife. I'm fine. I'm very happy. I had a great childhood, no problems. Right. But when we were in the breathworks, where we were actually doing the hour of breathwork, he was shaking, like totally having a major shake experience. But he was loving it. And afterwards, he was like, this is awesome. And we were trying to figure out, there's obviously something going on. You had some energy, and it came out, he lived in a family where everything was always good. It was never okay to share anything but positive. Right. So he just had stuff suppressed in there, and he didn't even know about it. And you know what? He didn't need to know about it, but he was enjoying the experience.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And again, everyone, the book is Trauma Release Formula, and Anne, of course, has other books also. But go to homesweethomebirth.com. You can find out everything about Anne, about her services, about her books, about her courses.
And the Clarity Breathwork.
You do the Clarity Breathwork. You said that you do have workshops, and you do work with people online, through Zoom and Skype also.
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of clients all over the world from Skype, thanks to this social media. People are fine. Yeah, we're doing it on Skype, and I do weekend retreats. I'm doing a weekend retreat with a colleague of mine in the summer, and then I do intro workshops, group breathwork sessions in my local area, and I've traveled before to do them. Yeah, and I was just in Costa Rica, so.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Anne and Margolis, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tammy Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.